Our newest tech, Bastion, is bluntly one of the best techs and one of the best champions in the entire game right off the bat. And I'm telling you this from the perspective of a Masters War player. He is primarily meant to destroy Alliance War. He translates very well into the rest of the game as well, but his value in Alliance War is immense, and we're going to see him in many different game modes, of course, but I do have some off-season war footage that I want to provide, and then eventually some in-season once the season actually starts, because I know I'm going to be assigning myself to him. So, anyway, Bastion is one of my favorite characters in this game already. He's one of the coolest designs, coolest animated champs, which honestly I say about almost every tech champ that comes in the game. It's part of why tech is my favorite class right now, is because they all visually just look so good. And you can see I have him at Sig 21, because when I first pulled him, I was so eager to get to playing this guy that I gave him a Tech Awakening gem, and of course regretted it with my July 4th opening, where on my first Titan Crystal I dupe him. But that's okay. It's just a mistake that I was gonna pay for eventually, you know. But of course we're gonna go ahead and take some BG's fights with him at the start, and of course we're going to take his target matchup first, which is Onslaught. And Bastion is my favorite counter to Onslaught. He is probably the best counter to Onslaught as well. He is going to basically shut off Onslaught's narrow shocks. He's not going to be punished by parrying, because he can parry non-contacts. The Daunted also doesn't do anything because we don't have willpower to benefit from anyway. And yeah, we just place the disintegration vulnerabilities, and we just do a crap ton of damage, and then Onslaught's going to go down right here, and that is immediately a really good fight showing from Bastion. Full health Onslaught in 48 seconds in a meta where Onslaught's gaining even more power than normal, which is pretty cool. So now we're going to go fight Mr. Sinister. I believe this is our rank 4 Mr. Sinister, and I also... Okay, it's not the invade meta. I thought it was the invade meta at the start, but it's not. This is Conflictor, and this fight does take a little while again because of Conflictor. They're just gaining so much more power than normal, but also Bastion is reducing the amount of combat power the opponent is getting to compensate for part of that. That disintegration he places on his heavy attack reduces combat power rate by 30%. As a reminder, that is just an innate ability that disintegration does. It reduces combat power rate by a given potency, and Bastion's is 30% on his heavy attack one. And then there's a 10% version or 20% version on his special 3 if you want more. And another cool thing about disintegration is it is direct damage. It's not energy or physical, so no resistances can really mess with it. And that just makes it really strong for many other matchups where resistances might come into play. So there goes that rank 4 Sinister down in 64 seconds, which is pretty good. And next up we're going to go fight Bishop. I do mess up in this fight, and I'm going to eat his special 2 or something, but there are definitely advantages Bastion has for Bishop. So the first one is he has a chance to fail energy damaging debuffs based off of the amount of infection passives on the opponent. Now, this is not incredibly reliable against Bishop, because if you are getting incinerated, then it's probably going to be happening very frequently, unless you eat a special 2 like I did, where it only happens once, you know. But we're also taking a bunch of damage because of the meta where Bishop, you know, he really punishes you bleeding him. But that's okay, because he's going to go down in like 37 seconds, and it's not that bad. So in normal metas, he wouldn't be taking a bunch of damage back. Another thing that you might notice is that you saw me gain a crap ton of health back after eating his unblockable special 2. And that's because of an ability that Bastion has with his Armor Up passive, which isn't really an Armor Up passive, but it looks like one. And what that does is it's going to allow you to regen 85% of the damage you took after you get your block broken by a crush or an unblockable, and it lasts for 2 seconds. So if you eat an unblockable special 2 versus Bishop like that, you're going to heal back almost all the damage you took, which is pretty neat. And of course it has a cooldown and such, but it's still pretty neat. So anyway, now we're going to go fight Red Skull. Red Skull was really annoying this meta with just the extra combat power, but Bastion's going to be able to break through his armor and resistances because of the fact that, again, Disintegration doesn't care about resistances, so we just kind of do Bastion's thing and then go for those special ones and just do the damage anyway, which always feels pretty great. Now, another thing I want to talk about with Bastion is his power reroute passive. It's a brand new effect that Bastion got. I believe it's going to come on the Maker as well when he releases next month, or technically this month, but he's not out yet. And the reroute is actually one of the most creative and one of my favorite mechanics in the entire game. It's really cool, a really cool design that I never thought of existing. It was just a really creative idea by whoever the designer of Bastion is, where you reduce the opponent's combat power rate with your disintegrations, right? Well, what the reroute does is it takes that amount that you reduced and adds it to you. So if I reduce with my disintegration their combat power rate by 30%, I'm going to gain 30% myself. Yeah, I love that mechanic. I think it is, again, one of the most creative mechanics that has been introduced into the game recently, and big props to the designer for coming up with that idea, because I think it's super cool. So now we're going to go fight this Idoom here. This is in the side quest, and the reason I'm showing you this is because it has a really interesting shock node, where the opponent would place passive shocks on me. There's a chance that they place passive shocks on me based off of if they have an armor up. I believe it's 15%. And basically, Bastion reduces the chance of a energy damaging debuff being placed on him by 5% per infection charge. So just the fact that if we get 3 of them, we're already shutting off the node. And reminder, you get 2 by parry. So this node is almost not even here, which is amazing. And then I'm going to go for the special one to finish Idoom off right here. And yeah, that's a really, really good showing of its energy damaging manipulation, which we're going to see more of later in this video. Actually, right here on this fight. Okay, so this is a hazard shift lane in, I think it's Act 7. And I'm showing you 2 fights on this before we go to fight Alliance War hazard shift fights, just to understand the basics of how it works. So let's talk about all of Bastion's immunities and resistances and ability accuracy stuff right now. So firstly, Bastion is 100% resistant to bleed and poison because of his robotics mechanic that most robotics get. Now on top of that, when he fails, or when he would get bled or poisoned, he's going to gain a regen buff, which is going to heal either 3% of his max health or 8% missing health, which is ever the greater. And this is super strong. It means that if you are fighting hazard shift nodes which are spamming bleed and poison, you are going to be healing a lot in the fight. And of course, this doesn't just apply to nodes, it applies to defenders as well. It's a really, really strong regen, which I think we're going to see more later in the video as well. Now, as far as how the energy damaging manipulation goes, every techno-organic virus charge that we have on the opponent, as you can see, those are the things we currently have 15 of under Overseer's HUD. Those are going to each reduce the ability accuracy of energy damaging effects that have a duration by 5%, up to a max of 40% versus non-mutants and 60% for mutants. Now, what are some energy damaging debuffs and effects that have a duration that he can fail? Those include, but are not limited to, Incinerate, Shock, Cold Snap, Crit Fail, and Neuroshock, of course. And I think Nova Flame's in there as well, but you rarely see Nova Flame, and I wouldn't use him for Dark Phoenix, and you wouldn't really be getting Nova Flamed against Torch, so who cares about that? And of course there's more of those as well. I think Soul Barb is another energy damaging debuff that does count, and there might even be more that I can't think of. So that means that there are a total of 3 mainstream damage over time effects that Bastion can't deal with. Yes, only 3. That is Rupture, that is Disintegration, and Degeneration. So if there are any DOT effects almost in the entire game that have a duration on them that aren't those 3, he is going to be able to shut them off almost with 100% effectiveness. If you're fighting a hazard shift node, 8 charges and it's completely shut off. If you're fighting a champion, you might not be able to fail it all the time, but you're going to be failing it a good amount of time, especially against mutants. And Onslaught's a perfect example of that, because we're going to have only one Nero here, and that's the only Nero that's going to be active for the entire fight. So, it just means that he is so insanely strong for every single hazard shift node in the entire game, and so many defender gimmicks that involve energy, damaging, or even just some damaging debuffs like bleed and poison. So, let's think about the hazard shift nodes that he's not going to be able to counter with 100% effectiveness. Those are the poison rupture node and the bleed rupture node. And guess what? He can still take them half the time. He can still take the node half the time because there is bleed and poison, which is going to be giving him regen. So, that just means that he is bluntly maybe the best hazard shift counter in the entire game, and hazard shift plays an insanely large part of Alliance War, which is why I think he is so strong for this game mode. Now, ignore me messing up against this Onslaught a lot. I just played pretty badly, but let's also focus on the fact that this is Shock and Incinerate Onslaught hazard shift. I got parried again, my gosh. And we're failing not only the Neuro Shocks, but we're also failing the regular shocks and the Incinerates just as well, which is absolutely phenomenal. So, anyway, Onslaught goes down there, and we're going to be fighting more opponents. We're going to fight this Dust here on node 36, which is hazard shift, bleed, and incinerate. So this one, I'm going to parry a couple times at the start, and once we get 8 of those charges, hazard shift's gone. So I'm going to parry 4 times, and then it's gone. This also has one eye open, so I'm going to refrain from parrying too much after that happens, but as you can see there, we're placing the disintegration vulnerabilities, which are going to make our disintegrations hit even harder, which are the bursts on his special 1. And the way I'm going to be able to get the disintegration active on her is by countering her special 2, and Bastion has one of the best heavy reaches in the entire game, so we are able to counter Dust's special 2 just like that. So I drop my special 2 there, get my Furies, and then we're going to go for my special 1 here, and every single hit of the special 1 is doing 35,000 damage in red. That happens 7 times, so that is just over 240,000 damage just on the special 1. And of course we have another one right here, and this Dust is just going to get completely wiped out. So that was a really cool fight with Bastion. We're going to take another Alliance War fight. This one is against Domino here in node 41. Now, if there was a mutant in the game that I do think Bastion is one of the weaker options for in the tech class, it's Havoc and Domino. Not to say he can't do those. I don't think he can do Havoc pretty well at all, but he can do Domino reasonably well. But if Domino does exactly what she does here and just decides to delay the counter and she just walks up to my light attack for the intercept, then we're kind of screwed. However, he's still going to do the fight pretty well, because if you listened to me mention earlier where I said that he can fail crit fail sometimes, that's going to be a part of this fight, because there's a 60% chance we would fail crit fail when it's going to happen. And as you can see, we're placing those disintegration vulnerability passives on her when that happens. Furthermore, we're getting a pursuit passive, which lasts 16 seconds on the heavy attack, which is going to basically make her lucky not exist. And she can still fail some abilities that he has, like there I didn't get a Fury, because he is not one of the techs who is really good at dealing with ability accuracy reduction. But that's okay, he doesn't need to be. There's plenty of techs in the tech class who already do that. Let him do something else, and what he does alternatively is extremely powerful, so I'm not really complaining. And yeah, I'm going to go for another special 1 here, and again, the crit fail triggers there. It only had a 40% chance to trigger, so 6 out of 10 times it does fail. I'm sure some of the hits on the special 1 did cause it to fail as well, which is great. And now we're going to do one more Alliance War fight. This is against Mr. Sinister on Hazard Shift. I'm sorry, not Hazard Shift. It's Safeguard, Stun Reflect, Bleed, Shock, and Force of Will. This is a really weird placement for Sinister. It's not something you'd really ever see in season. This is kind of just the node where Photon lives, but I figured I'd include it in the video anyway, because, again, Bastion's a very, very good Mr. Sinister counter. And when it comes to Safeguard, there's weird mechanics with how Safeguard works. It's like sometimes when you place a damage over time like instant burst on a hit, it doesn't always prevent or it does prevent the actual red number sometimes, which is weird because you'd think that like all red numbers would go through Safeguard. That's not actually the case, and I don't exactly understand how it works, but as you can see here, we're only doing almost 14,000 damage on each hit of the special one, which is weird because that's more than 1%. So like I don't understand exactly how the math works. That's obviously not what Bastion's disintegration damage normally looks like. It is much smaller, but it's also not 1% of Mr. Sinister's health, so I don't entirely get it. But I also get the fact that Bastion's able to do this fight very well, so I'm not really complaining. Anyway, so he drops a special one there. I'm just going to go for my heavy attack, and then we're going to drop a special one. I don't think this kills because we don't have my Furies for my special 2. Yeah, it leaves him at 1%, and then I drop a Relic, and then he does die, but yeah, that fight went pretty well. And now we're going to move on to this Namor boss. This one was pretty fun, I remember. It has Biohazard, so we can show off a great example of Bastion's ability to regen from bleed and poison. Furthermore, there isn't the node here that I thought there would be. A lot of times when they put mutants on Biohazard nodes, they put a secondary node where it punishes robots, and instead they'll like get shocked or something if they are immune to a bleed. Well, Bastion is resistant to bleed and poison, so he would not be affected by that node and therefore would not get shocked. And also he could fail the shock from happening because of the way he interacts with energy damaging effects. So even that's not even a threat. So anyway, we're regenning a lot in this fight, and then Namor is going to go down right there. Really, really quick and easy boss, naturally, because it's a boss from like Act 7, but still it's a pretty cool one. So now we're going to fight Eternity of Pain Bishop. This one's pretty fun. It has a node that's going to give me power over time when I'm close to Bishop. And of course, we talked about how he is reasonably good for Bishop earlier. I have no idea what the hell these graphics are. As you can see, he looks completely ridiculous. He looks like he's missing an arm, and he's like attached to the ground with a tether from those black stripes. I have no idea what happened. All I know is that after this fight, I like restarted my game to where that didn't look that way. But it looks pretty funny. So anyway, another thing for this Bishop fight is it has Hurt Locker, so I can't do SP2, SP1, SP1 unfortunately, because I don't want to repeat my special ones. It just means I have to do SP2, SP1 repeat. It just means my damage is a little bit worse than normal, unfortunately, but it's fine. So there I did my special 1 burst damage, and then I'm going to go ahead and go for another special 2 here. And then Bishop is going to drop his special 2 in just a second. I'm going to go for my special 1, not first. I need to try to reactivate my infection, which I'm going to do by just doing a couple 3-hit combos, and then backing off to where I don't gain too much power actually. And then I just need to go ahead and tap him a couple times. And then we do the burst damage, but my disintegration did fall off midway through, so I don't do all of it unfortunately, but that's fine. I'm going to go ahead and reactivate that right there, and then I knew this would kill, so I just played into Hurt Locker, and then he dies right there. So that was a pretty cool fight. Oh my gosh, he looks ridiculous, and I hate it there, but that's fine. We're going to go fight this Biohazard Crossbones next, and this is another one where it's like, yeah, okay, Biohazard is very, very good for Bastion, because we're going to take multiple hits in this fight. And when I say multiple, I mean a lot, because this is another one of those fights where it's like, oh my gosh, the AI is just absolutely crapping on my intercept attempts for some reason. And I sped this fight up a lot because it was really weird. Like, you need Crossbones to have 3 buffs to do damage, which was honestly difficult for me to do sometimes because Bastion's not really placing any debuffs for him to purify, which on the one hand is a very big benefit in a lot of matchups. I love champions who don't need buffs or don't need debuffs to work. I think it is one of the strongest pieces of utility you can have is when your kit does not need buffs or debuffs to do anything because of nodes like Buffet, Conflictor, Power Snack, and what's the other one? Masochism. Especially on the Alliance War map, where those things are all things that are everywhere on the war map. And again, he is a perfectly designed war champion. So of course you're going to gain regen buffs, and you're going to place a disintegration debuff on the special 3, but also those are just things that you're getting in the extreme circumstances anyway. So still, I love champions who don't need buffs and don't need debuffs to do their thing, and Bastion is no exception to that. And again, I took so many hits in this fight. I'm taking Bane damage sometimes, but look how much health Bastion has because of the regen from Biohazard. It's completely mental, and we finished that fight at 81% health, despite taking 10 hits in that fight to a Crossbones who is gaining a lot of extra attack and is also doing Bane damage to me. Another fight I'm speeding up because this took forever is Bullseye. And another fight that Bastion is very, very good against is Bullseye. Because you're going to gain that pursuit from your heavy attack. Furthermore, you're going to gain a regen every time he's going to bleed you through the block. And it just means that you are very sustainable against the Bullseye. I have an alliance mate with a rank 4 Bastion. And on the old war map, he was crapping on Bullseyes on Hazard Shift. Even like Hazard Shift, Incinerate, and Shock with Bastion, because you just start failing those. You start failing those Hazard Shift debuffs. You gain the pursuit to prevent his evade. You are regenning from when he bleeds you through the block, and it's just a really, really good time. So this fight does last a while because Bastion's not really designed to take long fights, and this is absolutely a long fight. This is in the Wheel of Fate quest, where he's got almost 3 million health. But still, he's going to do this fight very effectively, and it's going to take like 5 SP2, SP1, SP1 rotations, which is, granted a lot, but it's not that bad for this game mode. Now, you might be wondering why Bullseye is doing some damage to me when I dex him and when I take the bleed damage, even though I said he's 100% resistant. And that's just a weird way that the math works, because you'll see that red passive under Bastion that just expired. That is a bleed vulnerability passive, and what that's going to do is it's going to increase basically Bullseye's bleed damage by 50%, and that means I'm taking 50% bleed damage still because of how the math works, where he basically does 150% bleed damage and I'm resistant to 100%. So it's really weird how that works, but it doesn't take away from the fact that Bastion regens so much anyway that I can deal with the fact that that's a thing. Because again, those regen buffs are either healing me 8% missing health or 3% max health, whichever is greater, which I think is super solid, because every time I see missing health, I want to crash out because of the amount of instances where it's like, oh my goodness, this regen would feel so good, except for the fact that I have super high health anyway, so it really doesn't. So the fact that it actually can be max health sometimes, which a lot of missing health champs do not have that luxury, it feels really, really good, and I love that they gave him that ability, which they bluntly didn't need him to do with how sustainable he is for damage over time effects anyway. He truly is the future incarnate with how much he can adapt to those damaging effects. So here is a path in Act 9 where if you do a disintegration effect, you are going to place a shock on the opponent, and the shock is going to fail an unblockable passive that they would be getting at the end of their special attack. So again, we have a couple other advantages in this fight. One, we're just doing extra damage every time we do a special 1 disintegration burst. But 2, we're gaining a pursuit passive, which is going to help if Black Widow drops a special 1, because I don't like Black Widow's counter evade on her special 1. It's really annoying, actually, and we're going to be able to counter that just fine. And also, I failed the unblockable that would have happened at the end of her special attack because I have the disintegration active, and then I'm going to go for a heavy into a special 1, and then just place a bunch of shocks, which are just going to do extra damage as well, which is awesome. And then further, more fail the unblockable once again. So anyway, another thing is that similarly to how Neutralize fails noted buffs from triggering on you, which also applies to like Man-Thing and Mojo self-inflicted buffs, Bastion's also going to fail nodes where you might place a shock on the opponent. So you could see I was actually placing disintegration vulnerabilities because I was sometimes failing the shock from the node actually going on Black Widow, which I think is really funny. But at the end of the day, it's a good thing. It's giving me more disintegration damage on the special ones, so I can't complain to that at all. And I think I'm going to do a fight on this path 2 more times, 2 or 3. And yeah, it's going to go largely the same, where we're just going to be placing extra shocks and then failing those shocks, even going on Luke Cage sometimes, which is just going to give me those disintegration vulnerabilities, further increase my damage and stuff. Now, I don't exactly remember the potency of those disintegration vulnerabilities. I want to say it's 12% each, but that could be wrong. Either way, they are very helpful, and I think they're more potent against mutant champs. I'm actually going to go ahead and pull up Conchuzonk while I'm doing this voiceover and actually check the potency. So it's actually more potent than I expected. It's 16% each versus non-mutants, and then you double it versus mutants, so it's 32% each, meaning you're getting 32% extra disintegration damage versus non-mutants, assuming you have both of them, and then 64%, which is kind of wild, against mutants, just furthermore increasing his value against those hazard shift and just narrow shock placing champions. So Luke Cage is about to go down right here. I think, do the shocks finish him off? No, I actually have to kill him with my special one. That's fine. So we're gonna do one more fight on this path, and I have a pretty cool boss to show you guys. So this is against the Cyclops on the path here. A note I didn't really talk about on this path is the fumble, which is very annoying, obviously, because it means you can't dex the specials, and that just means it's more important to have those shocks and to be failingly unblockable by placing disintegration, placing the shock when your abilities don't fail the shock from going on them, that is, which is kind of ridiculous how that happens. That Discord notification was me, not you, if you actually heard that. I don't know if it went through my mic, but just in case. So anyway, there's the unblockable, but that's fine. I'm going to go for my special one here. And of course, we're going to go ahead and place some shocks, fail some shocks, place some disintegration vulnerabilities, do some disintegration damage, try to dex an unblockable, try to dex a special attack that I couldn't dex because I forgot about fumble, but then kill him again with the special one from the power we got from eating the special one. So it all worked out in the end. Anyway, now that that fight's over, we're gonna go fight the Toad boss in the same quest. I think this is 9.1. I'm sorry, 9.2.1. Maybe, I don't remember, but it's in 9.2, and this has some pretty cool nodes. This one is basically designed to punish the invalidate mechanic that used to be pretty popular for techs, and Bastion doesn't really invalidate, so that part doesn't matter. You also don't want to remove any prowess, or with invalidate obviously, but you also don't want to remove any regen effects, which another thing that, funny enough, Nimrod did. But anyway, so a really cool thing with Bastion for this fight is something I haven't talked about yet, and that's actually his sig ability. Now, I do need to mention a couple things. Firstly, his sig ability is really good because it's going to be what's allowing you to take hazard shift fights, because I should have mentioned this earlier, but you do need the awakened ability to take hazard shift very well, because that is what allows you to take non-personal effects from the opponent, which basically means that it doesn't work unless it's against nodes or you're awakened. And I'm going for a special 3 here intentionally because I want an extra disintegration for my special 1s. Now, the second thing that I want to talk about in Bastion's sig ability is not the Fury potency increase. That's like so overrated. People are overblowing that Fury potency increase by a lot. What I really want to talk about is the fact that he pauses all of his effects by a certain amount of time when the opponent triggers a prowess or a regen, which, if you notice, Toad is doing every single time we hit him, basically. So that means that that disintegration debuff and everything else on me is getting paused whenever I hit him, which is super great, especially for keeping that special 3 disintegration debuff going. And as you can see here, like, my virus charges are at 68 now, which is absolutely wild because they're not really falling off because we're just getting them to pause so much. And of course, this scales with how high a sig your Bastion is, because mine is only sig 21, and I think that's like a half-second pause, but at like sig 200 it's like almost 2 seconds. So it can be a much greater thing. It reminds me a little bit of Vox sig ability, where it starts out with a really small pause and then gets still kind of small but also impactful at the same time with how it works with their kit. So I think the last fight in this video is going to be this Onslaught in the Epic of Pain, and honestly, what better way to close out the video than fighting Bastion's best matchup, and the biggest of Bastion's best matchup, which is in the Epic of Pain fight, where we're fighting Onslaught, of course. And for this fight, it's annoying because it has Hurt Locker, so similar to the Bishop fight, we're not doing damage as well as normal, because I want to be dropping back-to-back special 1s after my special 2, but I just can't do that or else I'm losing health, so that's really frustrating. And I think at one point in the fight I go for a special 3, and it just wasn't worth it, and it was just really frustrating. So this fight lasts a lot longer than it needs to, but just the fact that, once again, we can just hard counter this defender, it doesn't even matter how long it takes, because there's no threat left to Onslaught. The only threat left is eating a special attack, and 1, if you eat it from Crush, you're regenerating stuff back anyway. 2, you're not really getting disintegrations, Neuroshocks on you, because he's failing them anyway, and you just kind of have a good time from that. So anyway, I'm going to start wrapping up the video here, because there's not much to talk about, just a big Onslaught where I have to mess with my damage rotation a lot, making it a bit more annoying. But I hope you guys enjoyed watching this one. I hope it was really educational for you and are enjoying Showcase Week so far. This is my 5th video of Showcase Week. I want to be doing these every couple months because they are honestly really fun to do, and I think you guys really enjoy them a lot as well. At least I hope so. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.